Hi everybody, welcome back. I have to ask you to please bear with me, have some patience this week, because this week is indeed a difficult one time-wise and so forth. But behind the scenes, I am trying to keep up with the news and pop onto the channel to have a word. I'm also using the time while waiting at the doctor's or waiting for Dragon Man to finish an assignment to reply to some of your email using my phone, because God alone knows if I don't do that, I'll never catch up. There was some very interesting email, but we'll go through some of those in a different or another video. There is currently so much in the media pertaining to the royals and the coronation in particular that I think it would be remiss of me to ignore it and to stick to the rather frivolous issue of the Harkles. Of course, I'm going to give my opinion on what I think and how I feel about certain subjects and issues being discussed in the media at the moment. And that is just what it is, my opinion and my feelings. And I honestly do not expect you to feel the same. All I'm asking is that as much as I respect your opinion, please respect mine, and if possible, refrain from making nasty comments in the comment section or sending me threatening email and DMs. It is just my opinion, which I am as much entitled to as you are to yours. Okay, the first thing I want to give my opinion on is the fact that it has now become known that henceforth Camilla will only be known as Queen Camilla, and that the consort will be dropped. Now, I've listened to both sides of the argument. Those who are saying, so what? The wife of a king is usually the queen, and the queen mother wasn't known as queen consort. She was just known as Queen Elizabeth during her husband's reign. And I understand that point of view. I get it. I do. But in my opinion, the circumstances are so vastly different. And the way we got to the point where Camilla will be known as Queen Camilla just does not sit right with me. It feels like gaslighting, like we have been hoodwinked. Remember when Charles and Camilla got married, we were told, no, we were promised that she will never become queen, but instead will become Her Royal Highness the Princess Consort. Well, at the time it was obvious that this was said and done to appease those who were opposed to the future king and head of the Church of England marrying a divorced woman. In a way, it was a way in which both of them paid penance for their adultery. But we have always known that although Charles went along with it at the time, that he was not happy with it. And we also know that in Charles's world, what Charles wants, Charles gets. Now, personally, I have nothing against Camilla. I think that in a way it is admirable how she just kept her head down and got on with the job. Yes, I am aware of certain manipulations and certain strings being pulled behind the scenes, etc. But honestly, guys, that happens everywhere, whether in politics or the monarchy or big business, and it is what we are presented with at the end of the day. And as a result of what goes on behind the scenes, which we really need to concern ourselves with. But anyway, so the world was told that Camilla was to get a lesser title as a sort of exchange for our acceptance of her and their marriage. Yet, over a year ago, we were exposed to the fact that the Queen herself no longer objected to Camilla becoming Queen Consort. Of course, most thought, oh well, that is fine. If it's fine with the monarch, then it's fine with all of us. But what we forget is that when the Queen made that statement, she was indeed already very ill and knew that she was dying. So did Queen Elizabeth really care at that point? Or did she simply feel that it was up to his son, Charles, to deal with the fallout? So just give him what he wants and let him deal with it. I think it's very likely the case. I think Charles used his mother's vulnerability to finally make this demand. But that is neither here nor there. I wasn't a fly on the wall and wasn't privy to any discussion which preceded the Queen's statement. What I am seeing, though, is this progression from princess consort to queen consort to queen. And I'm not comfortable with it because, in my opinion, the king, his council, and in a way, parliament are all ignoring the existing rules of conduct for a monarch and the head of the Church of England. And unless or until it is officially changed, I do not trust and am not comfortable with the blatantly ignoring of existing laws and rules, particularly not those based on moral conduct. It is just a basic fact that we tend to hold royals and others like ministers and bishops to a higher standard than we do anyone else, which is also the reason why the royals, for instance, are being paid so much and have certain privileges which us plebs do not have and will never have. For instance, the King of England is actually above the law and cannot be prosecuted in a court of law, and therefore it is only fair that he be held to a higher standard morally and otherwise. However, to date, Charles has not held himself to a higher standard. He did engage in lewd actions and affairs by his own admission. And he did have dubious liaisons and friendships. Just think of Savile. And he has been involved in borderline illegal transactions. Just think of the cash for honors scandal. It just is what it is. It's fact, whether you love Charles or whether you hate him. For me, elevating Camilla to queen is just another one of those actions of his where he is enforcing his will without taking the emotions and feelings of his sovereign subjects into consideration, and where he has used highly manipulative tactics to enforce his will on society. And that is what I don't like about this whole scenario. I also, in a way, feel that it is disrespectful to his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who had ruled for 70 years and who, in the mind of most people, will be associated first and foremost to the title of Queen for many more years to come. The next controversial point of discussion is the new detail which has come to light, namely that Camilla wants her grandchildren to be involved in the coronation and that they will now be tasked to hold the canopy over her as she is anointed with holy oil on the 6th of May. Now, on the one hand, I can almost understand that Camilla would want her own family a little more involved on this day, which must indeed be a very big and important day for her as well. But isn't there another way? A way in which tradition and protocol is actually less disrupted. Traditionally, the anointment of the king and queen is the most important part of the coronation, and traditionally, the task of holding the canopy would fall on the royal duchesses. For example, Catherine, who is currently the Duchess of Cornwall. And although she's not technically a duchess, Sophie, the Countess of Wessex, and Beatrice could stand in for her mother, the Duchess of York. But that is where we actually now hit a snag, where excluding the Duchess of Sussex would or may technically create an issue. So, in this one instance, I can understand the problem they are faced with because I'm sure that Camilla, after the Netflix docu-series and Harry's book, does not wish for Meghan Markle to stand over her during such a serious and important ceremony. So honestly, I'm conflicted over this. On the one hand, I don't like this absolute changing and modernizing of old traditions, but on the other hand, I have empathy for this particular issue facing the King, Camilla, and the organizers. And although I think it may be less controversial had they perhaps decided on using the ladies in waiting, but then also why not use children who are actually the true innocents in this whole debacle? I do fear, however, that using Camilla's grandchildren will spark a whole new debacle, as we should remember the message from Monteshit Show, namely that the Markleness requested a more prominent role for her children. Now, at 4 and 2, I cannot imagine what it could possibly be, but I fear that using Camilla's grandchildren may give cause for a whole new course of complaints and drama. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. I recommend you go and watch Richard Vobes, or Vobes, Vobes, in discussion with William Kite and Justin Walker with regards to the British Constitution and the oath of office the King will take on the 6th of May. I will also post the link to the letter in the description box below. And if you are in agreement with them, then they would appreciate you signing and sending a copy to your own MP. Okay, now their concern deals mainly with King Charles and his alliance with the World Economic Forum and the climate change agenda and so forth. I absolutely agree with them that it is both dangerous and unconstitutional for the king to be involved in geopolitical agendas. For those in other countries, a simple way to explain the constitutional role of the British monarch is basically that of representative of the people, as a sort of a buffer between the sovereignty of the people and the government, or then British Parliament. The monarch actually has the power to dissolve Parliament should the people feel that Parliament is not acting in their best interest. The monarch should also remain politically neutral because he is the monarch over all, regardless of gender, political, or religious affiliation. To date, however, Charles has not remained politically neutral and have openly displayed and supported his preferences. This has indeed been addressed time and time and time again, to a point where Charles himself lost his cool and said that he is not stupid and knows that he will have to be less outspoken as king. Yet he hasn't been. Liz Truss was the one to put a stop to him going to the COP meeting last year. Then Charles issues a very strongly worded and very political statement on the Ukraine-Russia war on the first anniversary of the war, saying things like, "This unprovoked war." No, it wasn't exactly unprovoked. But we are not going to argue that point right here, right now. The fact of the matter is that the King's statement was very clearly politically biased and, in a way, can or will not go down very well everywhere else. For example, in the past, his mother, the Queen, was the first British monarch to visit Moscow in October 1994. And even Charles himself visited Russia in 2003 at the invitation of President Vladimir Putin. As a matter of fact, at least one member of the House of Lords is indeed Russian. Yes, indeed, go Google Eugenie Lebedev, or then Baron Lebedev, owner of the Evening Standard and ESTV. Do you see the risk the king is prepared to face or take just because he feels entitled to his opinion? There is a vast difference between entitlement and doing a job which you are richly being compensated for and through which you earn unimaginable privileges. And then, of course, there is the matter of which William Kite and Justin Walker, both royalists, are talking, namely King Charles's involvement with the WEF, Klaus Schwab, and the Great Reset. Once you have someone like King Charles, who is not elected by the people of the country, speaking on behalf of the people, practically without their permission, you have a huge, huge problem. And it being unconstitutional is actually the least anyone should be worried about. Further concerns concerning the king's political interference are raised due to the audience held between the king and the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, at Windsor Castle. It is one thing meeting with, say, Zelensky, of whom at least it can be said that he is the leader or the president of a country, and it is indeed customary for the king to meet with foreign ministers and presidents visiting Britain. But having an audience with the president of the European Commission, what purpose could that have had? Surely they did not talk about the Queen's favorite recipe. So what is or was Charles's agenda? To ease his country back into the EU without a vote from the people of the country to do so? Or was he trying to do Rishi Sunak's job for him and strike a deal on the Northern Ireland Protocol? Well, I personally don't know, and neither do you. And that is the actual problem. The fact that we don't know what Charles is doing politically in instances like this. I honestly do not know what to say anymore. I take no pleasure in the fact that I correctly predicted that there will be numerous issues with Charles's reign. I wasn't so much negative or hateful towards the king as I was being practical, and unfortunately, past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. And not only that, but the king is a man with a past, and not a squeaky clean one at that. And unfortunately, his past does contain matters which can be held and used against him. I said and have been saying that although I understood British royal succession, I also understand the danger the king posed for the continued existence of the monarchy. William, for instance, has not really had the opportunity to show himself as a world leader yet. But one thing William has over his father is the lack of scandal, at least so far. As far as we can see, his marriage is still stable. He has not made any financial faux pas. He seems to be sticking mostly to non political issues like mental health and conservation, sport, and other social issues. Plus, being younger, him and Catherine are bringing back that bit of glamour and mystery we have always associated with the Queen. Catherine is indeed managing to keep a healthy balance between a Diana type of empathy and the Queen's decorum and correctness. How she does that, or who is advising her, I don't know, but whoever it is doing a darn good job. It is my opinion that Britain needs this. The world needs this. This bit of glamour and fantasy, but at the same time, them also being role models to the younger generation. It is my opinion that if King Charles truly loves his country and if he truly wishes for the monarchy to exist past him, then he should do the most selfless thing he has ever done and abdicate in favor of his son. He can still rule in a way or go back to being the Duke of Cornwall. Not that many residents are particularly keen on that idea. Or simply retire and spend time following his dreams, like digging up the lawn at Sandringham. Guys, I don't know. But listening to Sky Australia, Nigel Farage, and others, I fear that King Charles is simply not the man we need to rule Britain and the British realm at the moment. Of course, the Harry and Meghan continued saga is not helping to improve the King's image. It is making him look weak and as petulant as his son. Parliament offered him a way out, a way to distance himself from the Harkles by having the titles removed. But he opposed it, and most are saying he opposed it simply because he does not like being told what to do. Well, I don't know how true that is either, but I agree that whether you believe the Harkles narrative or not, the fact that the king does not have the guts to take disciplinary action against them does not bode well for his future reign. Now, to conclude, it is all a bit scary and very sad, and I personally truly miss the days of Queen Elizabeth II and her sister, the glamorous Margaret, and the handsome Prince Philip, whose quirks and sayings sometimes had us blushing, but whose heart was always in the right place. I don't want coach rides, jubilees, royal weddings, and trooping the colour to stop. But at the same time, my loyalty has always, first and foremost, been with the British people, my friends and family, and their happiness and their safety. And I cannot and will not support anyone who is endangering their health, their mental health, their safety, and their financial security. I want to see a king who will ensure that his government takes care of the British taxpayer, citizen, and subject first. I do not want my best friend waiting hours for an ambulance to get her and then waiting another hour and a half in the ambulance at the hospital before they can gain entry and treatment for a life-threatening condition. I want a king who will worry less about illegal refugees being repatriated back to Rwanda and worry more about a tax paying citizen born and bred in England, suffering to get treatment. Okay, guys, so that is my semi rant for the day. I have a few more rants on other subjects coming up soon. So until we get to that, please take good care of yourselves and each other. Bye.